Namaste and welcome to Hindu Lounge. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact is the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Collective. Hindu Pact is an initiative of World Hindu Council of America or VHPA, and we talk about contemporary American Hindu issues. I'm Ajay Shah. I'm the president of Vish Hindu Parishad of America or World Hindu Council of America, and with me, as always, is Sudha Jagannathan. Namaste, Sudha. Welcome back. It has
Namaste.
been a while, but I hear that you were on some exciting part of your world tour, and I hope you had a great trip. Tell us about it a little bit, and then we can dive into our topic for today.
Yeah, this will be a very interesting one. I went to Siddhapura, not in India, and
Oh,
Siddhapura for all of the viewers. I'm going to give you a clue. Aryabhatta, the great Aryabhatta, a mathematician astronomer,
yeah.
2000 years ago, 1500 to 2000 years ago,
Mhm.
in Aryabhatiya said, when it is sunrise in Lanka, it's sunset in Siddhapura. So I would
Okay.
like all of the audience to guess where I went.
Well, we have a chat that is open, and I hopefully somebody will respond to it. And if they don't, then please don't keep anyone in suspense. At the end of the show, tell us
We'll
where
see.
you actually
He's
went, right? Because
answering.
we want to know. Now all of us are curious as to where you went. And so
Yes.
at the end of the show, you have to tell us where you actually went.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Sudha, we have an interesting topic today, and people in academics like to use fancy words. So this is from most of the people who are living their lives, day to day lives, whether they're working at a tech company, whether they're in medical profession, they're working at 7-Eleven, running their own motel. They don't get into these words; they just live their lives, right? But the academicians have a way to assign labels to people, and one of the labels that they've assigned to people who do Hindu work is ethno-nationalism. And they have been using this word for multiple countries in different contexts. They've used it for Jews and in Israel, and they've used it for Hindus and in India, and they've used it for other ethnicities as well, and we'll kind of get into it. But so we're going to talk about the ethno-nationalism in Hindu context today. So for those who are, uh, who are not well versed with these kinds of, uh, social science definitions, well, a lot of people would say that is social studies really social science or not, but we'll leave that debate for some other time. Ethnic nationalism, according to them, is a political ideology that defines a nation by its shared ethnicity, culture, and/or language. So, if you are a nationalistic, your nationalism may be defined by a political ideology, or ethnic nationalism may be defined with a political ideology by a which where you have shared ethnicity, shared culture, shared language, etc. And so the ethno-nationalism is a nation's identity that is based on a shared ethnicity, which can include then a common language, common religion, ancestry, common customs. All of these things would make you an ethno-nationalist in some ways, or a nation. This would define a nation, and if you belong to a predominant community within that nation, then you would define it as ethno-nationism or ethno-nationalism. Um, there is if it applies to government, then it's a government that identifies with a single ethnic group. So you would think that a country like Pakistan, for example, which is an Islamic country, would be a single ethnic, single religion, and it would be ethno-nationalism would apply to that. Some other people will say, well, no, but there are Sindhis and Punjabis and Baloch and all that, so maybe it doesn't apply to them. We'll talk about it. Okay, and these are the people who generally don't want to treat the outsiders. Now, remember, this is not a definition that we concocted. This is a definition that came from people who study social sciences, and one of the also social studies. And one of the things that they say is that, well, if you're really an ethno-nationalist, then you treat people as us versus them, insider versus outsiders. You're not open to immigration and things like that. So, for example, the Ottoman Empire, which was very, Turkey centric, would be considered an ethno nationalist kind of empire. and they practice ethno-nationalism because they wanted Turkish language everywhere, and they wanted a caliphate, but the Khalifa was the main ruler was based in Turkey and all the other things. So that is the Ottoman Empire in Turkey, and it would be an example of a ethno-nationalistic state. All right. And then they have certain fears that they would talk about, which is, well, your fear of immigration, your fear of uh, people changing the ethnic composition of your, of your society and things like that. So this is this definition, academic, very academic definition. And so that this is where I'll pause, and I'll get your comments on the basic definition itself. What do you think?
Well, ethno-nationalism, it's a mouthful,
Yeah.
honestly. And like you said, it is defining nationality by tying to an identity of an
Yeah.
ethnicity. I
Yeah.
just want to point out a few positives, pros of ethno-nationalism before we
Okay.
get into the
Let's get
cons.
them. Yeah. Let's
So
get them.
the pros are cultural preservation and strengthening cultural identity, which is a good thing, right?
Mhm.
Every ethnic group or every any community in the world wants to preserve its cultural identity. So that's good. And the
Is
number
that
two,
Sudha? I mean, I'll just interrupt you, and just after you're done, comment on it. Is it really good from the perspective of people who actually wrote the definition?
yeah, I think we should look at that. Yeah, and the next one I would say for national unity, right? Because you want to bring, if you're thinking about it from a national point of view of any nation, you want all of your people to come together on certain points of that are important for the nation to progress. So national unity, okay, ethno nationalism should help. Then, national pride and social cohesion, shared identity and sense of purpose kind of strengthens all of that. So, those are the positives. If everybody worked towards the positives, that would be great. But the topic we are going to talk about is when academicians only focuses on the negatives and brings that as the full definition of ethno-nationalism. So that is, I think, what we want to talk about today.
Correct. Correct. So I mentioned, Pakistan as an example, and then I thought, well, maybe is it really a good example? And I would like you to
Yeah.
opine on it. Is that a good example?
Oh, well, you gave a great example of Ottoman, but they had an identity. But Pakistan is not like the Ottoman Turkish Empire.
Okay.
Pakistan is based on a religion. That was the reason it was formed itself on Islam. But like you said, Pakistan has a lot of ethnicities there. So it is not really, doesn't fit the ethno nationalism idea, but they still have a cultural identity around a religion,
I
right?
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it could be and it may not be, but it is all in your definition. It's in the eye of the beholder. And that's what we are seeing with the academicians too. They pick and choose how they want to see a topic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in your view, what is a good example in today's world of ethno-nationalist country? Now, I know that the academicians would like to assign ethno-nationalist definition to Israel and to India,
Mhm.
although I don't know how it can apply to Hindus in India, where there are Hindus who fit, all kinds of, languages and customs and modes of worship and all the other things, right? So when it suits their
We need to
purpose,
talk about, yeah, we need
yeah,
to talk about.
yeah. So when it suits the purpose, they would say, "Oh, you're all, it's one big pot." And then if it doesn't suit their purpose, they would say, "Oh, there's no such thing as Hindu because they're all, there's so many fishes and some, there cannot, there's no such thing as, as Hindu dharma or Hindu culture or any of that." So, what are you, in your view, what are the good examples? And in your view, again, where do Hindus fit in this?
Yeah. So in the modern world, some of the examples I've seen are the Kurds. Kurds
Okay.
in Turkey. So here it's no longer the old Turkish Ottoman identity. Now there are other identities within that nation of Turkey. The Kurds are a great example. They have their own cultural identity. They want autonomy, right? So that's an
Okay.
example of ethno nationalism. Another one is Serbia. If you remember what happened in the 90s, a horrible, horrible fallout after the Yugoslavia got broken up into the various Balkan states. And Serbia wanted a nation based on the Serbian identity with no Bosnians in there. And a problem for the Serbians was that Serbians were all Christian and Bosnians were majority Muslims. So it was a religious thing, but they put it in the identity of Serbs. So the Serbs in Yugoslavia was a ethno-nationalist kind of thing. Same thing we have seen in Spain and other parts. Malaysia is also called out sometimes as an example. But when it comes to India, you brought up a very good point. See, there are over 2,000 ethnic groups in India. So
Right.
how does it work as an ethno-nationalism, right?
Correct.
So yeah, I kind of feel like at least with Israel, there is the majority Jews, right? Again, it was a land, it was a nation formed for the Jews who practicing Jews, right? So that is a little bit different than India. But these academicians in the West, they are trying to force fit any idea or any nation or any group of people that they do not agree with, to kind of force fit them into their definition, which is what we are seeing with India as an ethno-nationalist. I don't agree it is an ethno-nationalist. 2000 plus ethnicities, all sorts of languages. And if it was really as they say, an ethno-national entity, there wouldn't be any Muslims in India. They would have all gone to Pakistan and former East Pakistan, which is Bangladesh. But that's not true. The second largest Muslim population in the world lives in India, right? And so I don't see this conversation that we are talking about because academicians are trying to put definitions around it. I don't agree with their definition.
So let me offer this slightly different definition and see get what your opinion is on that. So at VHPA, Vish Hindu Parishad of America, we get this question all the time, right? People come to us, and people who are from Indian origin, who are not from Indian origin, from anywhere in the world, they send us email, or we get phone calls where people say, "Oh, who is a Hindu?" And we have a very different, broad definition of who is a Hindu. And the reason I bring this up is because I want to point out that Hindus do constitute a much bigger umbrella. So our definition of Hindu, according to VHPA, is people who believe in, practice, or respect the spiritual and religious principles having origins in Bharat or India, which includes Jains, Buddhists, Sikhs, and people worldwide of various religious sects and within the Hindu ethos. And its definition also includes people who are born and brought up in India, who may follow Islam or who may follow Christianity, because they're all part of Bharat, and they're all part of broader Hindu umbrella or broader Hindu culture. So our definition is all encompassing. It's much bigger umbrella, which includes everyone. Now, the problem I have is not that we have four ethnicities or 10 ethnicities or 2000 ethnicities. I think of all of us, people who are either born a Hindu, Jain, Sikh, Buddhist, or anywhere in the world, or people who have adopted our religious practices or spiritual practices, more appropriately called. So, either spiritual practices or people who live in the culture, in the Indian culture. Uh, all of them to me are Hindus. Now, with such a broad umbrella, all encompassing umbrella, how can you define ethno and nationalism as prescribed to a single? How do you say that, okay, now you have to be a particular sect to be a Hindu, and then that is your ethnicity, and that is now you're practicing nationalism? So otherwise, somebody may say, well, I am Shakta, I am Shaivite, I am Vaishnavite, I am whatever. So now you're 2000 ethnicities, but I don't really think that Hindus have 2000 ethnicities. So maybe I'm saying something different than what you are saying. What is your take on that?
I kind of feel like the topic of what academicians are defining as ethno-nationalism, they want to define it to the borders of a particular country, right? They are not looking at the fact that Hindus live worldwide, right? I mean, and it's not a modern phenomenon either. There are Hindus who have lived in Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
in modern times in India. I mean, not India, Africa, Europe, and they came to the North American shores 200 years ago. How do you kind of collect all of them and put it into a borders of India? That is silly.
So let's
That
let's
is,
say, let's say India, right?
yeah.
So within Indian context, anyone who either practices Hindu dharma or Sanatan dharma, much more encompassing in one of many forms, or people who are following the culture that evolved in India. So you can be Muslim, you can be Christian,
Mhm.
but you're
Mhm.
still culturally. And if you go to Middle East or you go to any other place,
Civilization.
people will call you that. People will just say, "Oh, you're from Hindustan."
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Hindustan, it is a, I mean, it's a geographic entity, but it's much more than geographic entity. It's also a cultural entity. So
Yeah.
people who follow Christianity, and there were Jews in India, so Judaism, people who follow, Zoroastrianism in India, people who follow Islam in India, they all culturally are Hindus in one way or the other. That is my problem, that you take this Western definition of ethno-nationalism that came
Mhm.
out of some European country, and you try to uh, fit that to an ancient society which has existed for thousands of years and lived life in a particular way, and you say, oh, now we have this great new definition of ethno nationalism, we are going to somehow fit that definition on you, and then we are going to ascribe all the negative connotations that come out of it, and we're going to assign the negative connotations to you.
I agree with you. I think that is the whole point of these academicians who are coming up with the terminology that suits them, right? And it
Yeah.
doesn't quite fit uh, this particular topic of Hindus or the Indians. You know, it doesn't fit the topic of Indians at all. Like you said, an Indian can be anywhere, and anyone will say, I mean, can easily spot a person and say, oh, are you an Indian? That's a question, right? No, it's not like, are you a Hindu or are you a Muslim? Are you
Yeah.
an Indian? So it is a problem. That is a problem of academics defining things for their own purposes. And I think we should talk about why they do those
Yeah,
things.
so the reason we picked this topic is we came across this article, or a set of articles, and it's a conversation around books basically, and they've Ajanta Subramanian, who is a professor at I think it's at
Harvard.
Harvard. She's talking with the Balamurli Natarajan. This is another co-host of that show. Also, if you give me a second,
Laurie Allen, I think.
Laurie Allen,
Yeah,
I think, right?
yeah.
Uh, and they are talking about this book that Balamurli Natarajan has written, and it's called "The Culturalization of Caste in India: Identity and Inequalities in a Multicultural Age." And what they're talking about here is application of ethno-nationalism to as it pertains to Jews and Hindus. And when the Bal Murli goes by Murli, when Murli starts and when Natarajan starts talking about it, he talks about how it is applied to Dalits and Muslims in India, and he talks about how Hindutva people who Hindutva to me is people who believe in the essence of Hindu dharma, the Hindu way of life, and he talks about how the people who believe in Hindu way of life, of essence of Hindu dharma in Hindu diaspora, Hindus around the world, how does that impact them? So that is the and they ascribe a lot of negativity to ethno nationalism as it is practiced in their view, as it is practiced to Hindus, and we'll get into it. So Sudha,
Mhm.
you have read this article as well. I mean, you have listened to this podcast, read this article that they did. what are your initial thoughts before we dive into it?
Well, I think they're looking for well, they think they have a solution, but they're looking for a problem to apply the solution to. So I read the article, and it essentially kind of boiled down to a few ideas that apparently they left Hinduism because they were secular or non-believers, and they feel like these Hindus have now come in and taken over Hinduism, defining who Hindus are from the point of a Hindu, and not Murali Natarajan or Ajanta Swaminathan, right? So we don't
Subramanian,
know.
Ajanta Subramanian.
Aranda Ajanta Subramaniam. We don't know if they are practicing Hindus or what, but they seem to have a gripe against Hindus taking charge of defining who Hindus are. That's one. The second thing is they're all hung up on this trope of caste, and I think that's why it's important in the context of United States and Canada, North America, basically, because caste has been used to beat up Hindus every which way. We are seeing that constantly, right? So that is something we definitely need to talk about. What are these people doing with picking caste in United States when there is no data, absolutely no data to say that the Hindus practice caste in the United States? How many of us are there? 3 million Hindus out of 4.5 million Indians or something, right? Um, and there is no data at all that we practice. But these people are making a livelihood of this topic of caste, and they talk about it being no longer vertical hierarchy, it's all horizontal, and that is what he's calling as culturalization. And he's also, I mean, these Mr. Natarajan or Professor Natarajan, and so the lady Subramaniam, they're both a little upset that Hindus are taking charge of the conversation. And not only that, the folks that they want to represent, that these professors want to represent, have joined the Hindus, whether in India or elsewhere. And so they are trying to figure out, how do we get back in the game? How do we take the conversation back where it belongs? And where it belongs is in the left liberal, because we
Right.
are all right, right? So there is a lot of labeling going on all
Yeah,
through this.
it's very strange. It's really strange. Yeah, please continue. I just wanted to mention that this is the podcast that I'm referring to, and the narrative that they presented is um, a podcast which is called Recall This Book, and the Recall This Book podcast is partnered with Public Books, and this was a conversation between again uh, Balamurli Natarajan and Ajanta Subramanian
Subramaniam and
and
L'Oreal.
Laurie Allen. So yeah, please continue. I just
Yeah, so the conversation is really about the comparison of or they're kind of not too happy that Hindus are following Jews in the methodology of standing up against narratives in the United States, getting trained by Jews. I don't know how many of us go for training from Jews, but for various reasons going on in the world, of course, there is a lot of alignment between the Jews and the Hindus everywhere, particularly in North America. But that doesn't mean we are copying everything from Jews. If we can copy good ideas, why not? We'll copy it from Muslims or Christians or Jews. The idea is equal representation in this country, and that is what we are fighting for. It is not about being Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Jew. It's about equal rights under the Constitution that allows us all of those freedoms. So it's not for Ajanta Subramaniam or Balamurali Natarajan to say, Hindus, you guys, you need to stay in your place. You don't have the same rights. They have no right to say that to us.
yeah.
So I
So let's
think we should.
I think
Yeah.
that's you make excellent points, right? So, but let's take this step by step, and let's go through the argument that they are making. And so I picked up a few quotations from the podcast that they did, the podcast interview that they did, and one of the things that it said was the three pillars of Hindutva ideology are Hindu, Hindi, and Hindustan. So, Hindu being the faith in their view, Hindi being the language, and Hindustan being the geographical boundaries of India. This is, and then they continue to say, they continue on and they say, this is their founding documents, ideologically reproduced, culturally embodied, and signified in just about everything they do. I think this is, I this is a at best a poor understanding of what Hindutva is, because Hindutva to most people who are practicing Hindus, who are practicing, who have faith in the essence of Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, is that this is an ideology, this is a faith, this is a spiritual practice that welcomes everyone to its fold. And I don't know who said that and when it was said about the Hindi, but I think the more and more you look at the today's Hindutva movement, it is the most, it is not language centric, it's not language does not play a big role. Now there is certainly, as it is with many countries like in China, there's a lot more emphasis on learning Chinese, or if you go to Thailand, there's a lot more in Thai, and in Japan there's a lot more on Japanese, and if you go to Germany, it's a lot more on German and all that. I think in India, there is certainly an emphasis that people, that we don't want to break the link between the culture and the language, because language gives you the insight into a culture, into your faith, into your spirituality, like nothing else does. So if you don't understand one of the Indic languages, then there's no way for you to understand what is dharma, what is karma, all these essential Hindu words. There's no way to understand. The more and more I see this, there's a lot more convergence that maybe the language that everyone should be learning is Sanskrit, or their mother tongue and Sanskrit, and that should suffice. So I think this, I don't know where they got this quotation that, oh, you have to have Hindi and Hindustan. Well, Hindustan is is a, as a geographic entity, has existed for thousands of years, but it's also not about the present day boundaries. It's a lot more about a place which has given rise to this incredible culture that has enriched the entire world for thousands of years. Why
Yes.
would you want to give up on this, the place that has given so much to the humankind? And I think that's where at least, so I think that these three pillars of Hindutva ideology, they've completely misunderstood.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, again, see, they are saying those are the three pillars. I don't think it's something anyone else has defined. So they are setting the metrics for us to kind of, go under, right? You have to stay under the radar of the things that they have laid out for us. And the fact that we are challenging this, they'll come up with new terminology, new explanations to counter everything that we are going to be bringing out here. So I agree with you. See, to bring up Hindi is kind of silly. I would rather they had had Sanskrit. But Sanskrit is not the official language of India. And Hindi, everyone learns Hindi. But at the end of the day, the land is divided on the basis of language, right? It's not even based on anything else. So, plethora of languages, a diversity of kind of religious beliefs, all live together. And that is the reason that India has always welcomed refugees of all faiths,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even today, it is the biggest sanctuary. So they cannot say Hindutva is this. Hindutva is Hinduism, which their own people defined it in the 2021 Dismantling Global Hindutva, that
yeah.
Hindutva is equal to Hinduism. So this is the post keeps changing.
Absolutely. And so then, Professor Natarajan goes on to say that, he has a problem with Dalits being counted as Hindus. I don't know why, but here's what he says: the Dalits are a thorn for Hindutva in different ways. They challenge the idea of a unified Hindu community and Hindutva project through their very existence. They keep saying Hindutva as a project instead of saying Hindutva as a way of life. But it's a very calculated move to separate the essence of Hindu Dharma from Hindu itself or practice of Hindu dharma and Hindu spirituality by calling it a project. And you see
Mhm.
that theme multiple times, and they think that people like us are stupid who don't catch up on these kinds of little linguistic gymnastics or lingual where they try to rebrand things and all that. But most Hindus are smart enough to kind of catch these kinds of things. And they've gone to say that through their very Hindu community and Hindutva project, through their very existence, the outcast of social order, of course, many Dalits still continue to be. And then he is lamenting. He's saying, well, but many Dalits still continue to be counted as Hindus, and many Hindu Dalits do share the Hindu religious practices. And he's baffled. He's baffled that the Dalits are following the Hindu practices. And then it goes on to say that many Dalits worship Murugan. Can you believe that, Sudha? Many Dalits worship Murugan. Professor Natarajan does. It's like
Yeah,
for a god very popular in South India, and he is just completely baffled.
yeah. This is all, like you said, mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, it's a verbal,
Gymnastics. Yeah,
mumbo jumbo, like soup of all the words that they could come up with, they could
yeah.
conjure up with.
Yeah, actually, a lot of what they talk about don't make sense. But I think that is the whole point, to just be so abstract and just throw top themes and ideas out there. But the main points are like what you picked up, Project Hindutva. I saw that and I said, hey, sounds like Joshua Project, huh? But they don't have an issue with the Joshua Project. But here is the Hindutva Project. First time I'm hearing it. What
Yeah,
is a Hindutva Project? They don't define it except by
well,
saying Hindutva is Hindu, Hindi, and Hindustan. That doesn't make any sense. So,
and
a
then
lot of issues.
and then
Yeah.
then it goes. I mean, they don't give any credit to people who practice Hindu dharma in multiple forms, because then he goes on to say the main point here is the only way for Dalit to remain some way amiable to Hindu Rashtra is for Hindutva to ethnicize them as seamless part of national Hindu community. One hand, you go and say that they are worshipping Murugan, Bhagwan Shiva's son. On the other hand, you are saying that Hindus are somehow forcing Dalits to adopt the Hindu practices. It's like they fail to understand. They don't understand that for thousands of years, this is how the communities in India uh, worshipped, and they coexisted. And unfortunately, because of all the invasions of past 1,000 years, a lot of corrupt practices got in, and we have lived. Nobody minimizes uh, the very very difficult times the Dalits have lived through in India. Nobody minimizes the fact that they were not treated as equals by any means for 1,000 years. But remember, these are the times when there were a lot of invasions, the foreigners ruled, the society became inward facing, all of that. And the reform movement has started within Hindu Dharma.
Yes.
You need to hear from people who, that are, who are so confused that they cannot make up their mind whether people are forcing someone to practice to worship Murugan, or people are worshiping Murugan on their own.
One point about that is the reforms within Hinduism came from uh, all classes of people. A lot of what we call Dalit, OBC, they produced a lot of leaders that actually contributed to Hinduism opening up and being more of what it was originally. So it's not like the so called upper caste came down and said,
Yeah,
oh, we've had a change of mind, let's take care of you. No, those rights were demanded and offered and made to change the whole Hindu system. So Hinduism is the only religion that has the capacity to evolve from inside.
yeah,
Okay, and I think these people ignore all of that when they continue on this topic of caste and being upset that Dalits and Adivasis are coming into Hinduism. They don't understand. We have an Adivasi Dalit as not we, India has as a president of the country. And they're
yeah.
upset. That's all happening.
Well, so and then again he goes on to suggest that 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 for somehow or the other, we have a problem with us versus them. And I don't know who us is here, but to him, all the different ways in which Hindu Dharma manifests itself among different people in India, different regions, different languages, different cultures, different customs, he has some problem with that because he always tries to categorize as us versus them. I don't have any problem in my mind or in my heart when it comes to us versus them. It's to me, it's all us,
Yes.
because the essence of Hindu Dharma, the very essence of Hindu Dharma is ekam sata viprabodha vadanti. The truth is one, but the sages, the saints, and the people see it in different ways. And
Mhm.
Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, the entire universe is one family. Now, if you have these as your guiding principles, what is us and what is them?
Well, there's a lot of us and them in this article, and I can bring up one where he says, we anti-caste. Okay, so he's talking about he and his this cabal, anti-caste, and them is people like us, and he's upset that we are claiming to be anti-caste too. He's got a big problem with that, right? So when he say us and them, he's got a lot of us and them. He's got us and them in all sorts of categories, and that's a big problem.
So I grew up in Mumbai. I lived very like maybe 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes walking distance from the largest slum in Asia, Dharavi. And I
Mhm.
used as a college student, I used to go to Dharavi quite a bit, and I used to go to other areas of Mumbai, and I mingled with all the people who lived in the slum, who lived in the chawls. I never knew what their caste was. I ate food at their place. I did, it did not even enter my mind what is. And I think this is where people like Ajanta Subramanian and Balamurli Natarajan, they fail to understand what drives the people who do work, who do volunteer work for Hindu organizations, for the Hindu cause. They think that we are here because we want to assert some kind of superiority, or we want to convert everyone to our way of thinking. It's not that. When we come like you and I and people like us, ordinary people who want to do something good for for the society,
Yes,
right?
I just want to also emphasize a lot of us started to come in because we found that we were going to be defined something that we were not by people like Subramaniam and Natarajan. Okay, that was one big reason a lot of Hindus have become active today in North America,
Yeah,
because we saw that this was not right, that somebody would try to label us, would try to delegitimize us as worthy citizens of the United States or Canada. That was what energized a lot of us to come in. And we are not here for money. We work hard, right? We are law abiding. We don't ask anything of the nation. We give to the nation. So we
correct.
are that sort of people, and that is where these folks have an issue with it. They feel like we are not staying quiet under the radar, under their definition, and not following towing the line that they draw for us. We don't have to. We live in a democracy. We came from a democracy, and we have rights that we all have, and we are no less than anybody else, and we are not saying we are superior to anybody, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah, we consider everyone as equal. We want equal representation. So that's why we are working in it. We are not in it for money. We're not in
absolutely
for
not.
power.
And most of us do this. Unlike Professor Subramanian and Professor Natarajan, we this is not our day job.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a profession for them. So think about it.
Yeah.
We work 10 hours a day doing our day job, 11 hours a day doing our day job, and then we find 4 to 6 hours a day outside of our day job, outside of our family time, to work on the Hindu causes.
Well,
That they will not
yeah,
understand that.
we won't, but we are in it because we are finding that we have raised great kids.
Yeah,
Okay? Great kids with good hearts, which they have now targeted for brainwashing. And
yeah,
the brainwashing is so bad that families are being broken up.
Yeah,
That is not right. That is why we are all in this thing to fight against this kind of negative narration
absolutely.
and against these kinds of tropes that are thrown at us about caste or being supremacist, equating us to white supremacy. We have nothing to do with any of that stuff. And
No,
so I just want to say, we are in it for the right reasons, not for superiority or uh, or ruling the whole world. We have no
no.
intention of doing that.
And they really, I mean, I really say this, that maybe they should sit down with us and try to understand us, because they absolutely don't. So one of
They
the things
won't.
that he says, why would they do that? Because that, someone like Professor Natarajan is sitting on the board of directors of Hindus for Human Rights, which is the most Hindu hating, one of the most Hindu hating groups in America. But he goes on and says that Hindutva is ultra nationalism in that sense. It's really not interested in nation building. Now, this shows, I don't even know where to start, Sudha. I'll tell you one
Mhm.
thing, that when I was maybe 17 years old, and I went to ABVP, Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, and the thing that attracted to me the most was the fact that we always talked about, in Vidyarthi Parishad, they always talked about Rashtriya Punarnirman,
Mhm.
national reconstruction. And when someone says that we are really not interested in nation building, he doesn't know, or Hindu people who believe in Hindutva, and a sense of Hindu Dharma, rebuilding India, and to achieve the scientific and artistic and all the other greatness that India had in past, to reconstruct that. That is why we joined these movements that promote these values. And to say that we are not interested in nation building, I would have given this lesson to Balmurali Natarajan for free. I mean, I'm not in this for money. I mean, I'm not an academician. I don't make money out of teaching people. I would impart this freely to him.
What it kind of boils down here is that I think I just want to mention. Um Ethno-nationalism. I want to talk about what about the reverse of ethno-nationalism. Okay,
Yeah,
I like the positives of ethno-nationalism. Okay, the national identity, unity, a common purpose, all of that is wonderful. But
yeah,
these folks are they're only focused on the negatives, which is like marginalization of minorities, and only the land is only for one. It's not even being ethnic anymore. It's about being a religious. They
yeah.
don't say Pakistan is ethno nationalist because it's based on Islam, but they say India is ethno religious, ethno nationalist because it's based on Hinduism. So they kind of flip and flop whenever they want. But I want to say about the reverse ethno nationalism. If we take a look at in the country of India, 200 million Muslims and many million Christians and Buddhists and Sikhs and Parsis and Jains, and they are all living mostly in harmony, okay, except when things are stirred up by mischief makers. And to say that this is and if what about a reverse ethno I know the reverse ethno nationalism is the country has always paid attention to multiculturalism, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that the minorities need to be helped more than the majority. No other country does it. No other country does it for a majority religion, majority Hindu, 80%, if that is
In
true,
Manmohan Singh, they say that the minorities have the first right
first right to benefits. Yeah.
to all the
What other,
resources of
how,
the
so
country.
how does the definition of ethno nationalism according to these people fit a nation like India? It doesn't, because
Yeah.
the benefits, the Hindus are upset a lot because benefits don't come to them, right? We don't even have the rights to manage our temples. The temple donations don't even go for the benefit of the Hindus. All of this is true, and still these people say that the Hindu majority is promoting this ethno nationalism. It makes no sense, absolutely no
None,
sense.
none,
And they are
absolutely
also
none.
concerned about the fact that their terminology and attacks are not having much impact, and they're looking for ways to how to get back into the game. That was the purpose of this article. How do we get back in there, right?
Yeah. I know they're really they're baffled, and as I said, I offer these lessons for free. Let me show you. Let me read a couple of more extra and a couple of more excerpts out of this. So then he's asking, again, Professor Natarajan is asking, why then has it been, referring to Hindutva, been so successful? Hindutva has become the self-styled speaker for Hindus and Hinduism, going back to Arndt's thinking. The house of Hinduism was vacated by a lot of us who thought of ourselves as secular, even non-believers, and who ended up not paying any attention to who was going to the temples and who was attending the sermons. Now, okay, play hear me out on this one. He is saying that people who want to people who are secular, that means non-believers. When he says secular, it's basically anti-Hindu. We all know that, because in India people have figured out a really good synonym for secular, and that is pseudo-secular. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. They say, oh, we didn't pay attention to what the community needed. That's what he's saying. He's saying that, oh, we didn't know that people wanted to send their kids to Bal Vihar or Bal Gokulam. We didn't know that they wanted to send their kids to summer camps. We didn't know that they wanted to learn about bhajans, and they wanted to learn about shlokas, and they wanted to learn about why we are celebrating Diwali and Holi and Navratri and all of that. And so we missed out. And we never even paid attention that who is going to Mandir, because if we knew it, we would have countered that. And that is what leads us to the point you just made. Okay, that is what leads us to the point, Sudha, that you just made, which is, they're saying we need to start paying attention to this. So
Hmm.
how are
We
they
need to
paying
get back
attention to it?
into the game.
They
Yeah.
they they start an organization like Sadhana. They start an
Mhm.
organizations like Hindus for Human Rights, which have the Hindu name, which try to create an aura about Hindu dharma somewhere, but they're really not Hindu. If you look at
Yeah.
the board of directors, where Balmurli Natarajan sits on the board of directors of Hindus for Human Rights, they're Hindu haters who are sitting there, like Swara Bhaskar and a lot of
Yes.
other people.
Yeah.
It's the who's who of Hindu haters.
Yes.
A
They
who's
have
who of
all of
Hindu
that.
haters is sitting on that board.
Yeah.
Okay, and who do they join programs with? They do joint programs with Indian American Muslim Council, which is rabidly anti-Hindu group. They share sponsor tables with them. They share booths with them. They make absolutely no secret of the fact that they are in cahoots with IMAC all the way,
Yeah.
and they think that Hindus are stupid or ignorant or both, that they would overlook that in some way. Maybe temporarily, people don't know, people don't keep up with politics, they don't know that this is going on. How long do you think they can deceive Hindus and they can play this double game? It's right here. He himself said it, that
Yeah.
we need to pay attention to this, so we need to pay lip service to this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to your point, and maybe
Yeah.
you want to make that point again and emphasize on it,
No,
because you
it's
say so
really
well.
about, yeah. And this is where they talk about us and them, or the left anti-caste, and now the right is becoming anti-caste. So we have to figure out a way to separate us from them, and also get back into defining Hinduism for Hindus. And they said, the best way to do that is all of these Hindus who are in the diaspora now, who are really not up to speed on all of this wonderful ethno-nationalism or whatever other agenda they've been talking about. That is the target audience for them to go and
Correct.
teach them to be good Hindus. That
Yeah.
means anti-Hindu.
Yeah,
So yeah, they're
exactly.
very
They're
clear in
really
this
very
document
clear, right?
about.
I mean, one
Yeah.
thing you have to credit them is they're very clear. They put it in black and white that, look, I mean, we didn't pay attention to all the people who really wanted to know about Hindu Dharma. So let's go to the mandirs, go to the places where the Hindu kids are found, and work with them to kind of get them to be non-Hindus or Hindu
Yeah.
hating,
Hindu
right?
haters.
Okay, now now Laurie Ellen chimes in, and she says, I'm wondering about what kind of gratification is enjoyed by these guys, and what maybe we can call the field work of Hindutva. So, like, why are these people enjoying the work, being volunteers? I just said that people have, we are not professionals like them who get
Mhm.
paid to, do the anti-Hindu propaganda as faculty members and members of the, NGOs or whatever they are. Hey, more power to them. I mean, like, let them be happy. But they're wondering, why are we happy? Why do we get gratification out of doing the work that we do? And so Murli Natarajan says anyone who has done the work on gangs sees that it's really not ideology only. What is involved is material social relations of belonging, of having support. So Hindutva has for a very long time built an array of organizations that work at the lowest level, and such as the administrative level in the civil society, and this they'll be sought to solve the really banal everyday life issues. Now, they understand nothing.
Yeah.
I'll give another piece of free advice to them. People do this work because they're committed to making a change, bringing about a change in the society. They sacrifice. We have a song, a song, RSS song that says "Mana samarpit, Tana samarpit." That means I'm sacrificing my heart, my soul, my mind, all of it, or rahe jivan samarpit, and I'm sacrificing my life itself. For what? Because I have uh, I have to pay a debt to my motherland, to my dharma, to my spirituality, to the to thousands of years of heritage that I have got. I have to pay it back by making things better for the next generation.
Yeah.
That they don't understand that.
They
They
don't.
think we are in this because there's just like gangs are in this.
Yeah, in I then I have to say I question their loyalty to the new country they live in too. If these are the kinds of ideas they have of us and them, right now their target is just Hindus. Right here in the diaspora is the main one they are targeting
Yeah,
by talking about things happening in India, which they don't understand first of all. But I then question, how is their work advancing or progressing life of Americans in America? How? I don't see that. All they are about is divisiveness and building hate and bigotry and divisions in society. And they don't care because they are in it for the money. And they're invited by institutions, they're invited by corporations, the DEI of all of these corporations and universities to come and give talks. And instead of giving talks on positive reinforcement of all the values we stand for, they are going in there and talking about us and them.
yeah,
How does that jive with making any place really wonderful, right? I mean, this country that we live in, we are all blessed to be having all of the things that we have today, and instead of showing gratitude, they're kicking it in the teeth.
yeah. The Professor Natarajan then goes on to say that Hindutva has tapped into that social psychology. It has mass appeal across caste, as is regularly shown. I don't think we should assume that some castes, especially the subaltern class, are impervious to the attractions of Hindutva. Oh wow! So you mean to say that people of all, so-called castes and all creed and all customs and cultures and linguistic groups and regions all find Hindutva attractive? Doesn't that take away, as you just said, doesn't that take away from their entire argument that a Hindu dharma as a single unifying factor doesn't exist, or Hindus are divided on the basis of caste, and there's a caste oppression going on and all that? On one hand, they want to claim that. On the other hand, they're saying, "Wow, what happened here? Why all this caste? Why is there a prime minister of India who comes from supposedly the OBC community? What went wrong with this community? What's wrong with Hindus? Or
Yeah.
what's wrong with these subaltern castes, right? What happens to them?
These are the white supremacists of academia, Ajay. They are the white supremacists. I mean, the equivalent. I don't want to label the white people or anybody. I'm just saying that is thrown at us that we are white supremacists. I would say they are the ones, and we are also called Nazis and all sorts of things. I think these are the people who
You
are
know,
all of
yeah, and look at this. Okay, and then they will say, I mean, and the uh, for the intellectually bankrupt people,
them. Hmm.
as these people are,
Hmm.
their one refuge that they have, or they think they have, is that, oh, it's all the movement, Hindutva movement in India is all funded by American money. I
Hmm.
can tell you, Sudha, I've been working for Hindu organizations in America for decades. Like really, I I have to seek out donations to
Yeah,
pay money to have my account on the streaming service that I'm using. Okay,
yeah,
if I had that much money that I'm funding the Hindutva movement in India using what they call saffron dollars, I would not be putting up a lower third banner on this particular video cast saying that please donate $5 a month here. So I think there is some, they people don't understand. Again, I'd be happy to impart this knowledge for free, that there is no, there's no American Hindu money funding anything anywhere. If you see that, okay, you know, if you look at our tax returns through the years, we get designated funds, for example, for supporting a child, and we end up supporting, at one time we were supporting, and these are all public data, public numbers, it's on our website. We were supporting 700 kids, 500 kids for a long time. Now we are supporting close to 5,000 kids a year. Okay, 5,000 kids. What is the population of India?
yeah.
1.4 billion. What is the
Hmm.
population of kids who are between the ages of 6 to 15 when they go to school? Hundreds of millions.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
many kids are we supporting? 5,000.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is, if they think that this, and this is because people who have come from India, they've come from a certain region of India or whatever, or they want to help someone out back home. You think that this is the money that is funding a big mass movement in India?
Well, they're going to do. You know what they're going to do is they're going to do some investigation of. They're going to follow the money.
Yeah,
Let them follow the money.
by all means, they have plenty of
I
time.
know. Yeah.
So
I,
it's baffling. I don't know what these guys are. What these guys
Well, the
can dream
point
up.
we have to, yeah, really have to focus on, Ajay, is that these people are now regrouping, rethinking, coming up with new ways to attack the Hindu community, because otherwise they're going to lose credibility in their circles, and they don't have any relevance, and they cannot make any money. So
I, you
they're
know, I
making.
help me with this. Maybe this is money. Maybe this is something else. I don't know what this is. I heard Ajanta Subramanian, Professor Subramanian, say that, in her view, uh, the uh, and or in her understanding, or whatever phrase you want to use there, the people who live in Kashmir in India think that India is practicing settler colonialism in India. Now, for those who don't know the phrase settler colonialism, it's a phrase which is applied um, to many communities, such as Jews in Israel, who they think that people settle over there and displace the original inhabitants who were Palestinians, and they've become a colonizers. But they're not like, okay, I'm a foreigner, British colonizing India, but I actually come there, settle there, become a native, and I practice settler colonialism. Now, of course, if you talk to Jews, they will say, hey, we were here for thousands of years before even Islam as a faith came about. So we will not go into the Israel and Palestine and other issues. I mean, this can be applied to whites in South Africa, to people, Europeans, and even us for that matter, who
Yeah,
came
the
from India
United
and who live in
States.
America. Are we?
I think we lost your audio. No audio still. I don't know what happened. Suddenly went off. Yeah. Anyway, on the topic of their assessment of calling the Kashmiris a settler colonialist, I wonder who they are talking about, because the Kashmir Valley is 98% Muslims. All of the Hindus were driven out. So who is actually the settler colonialist there? The current inhabitants of the Kashmir Valley, but that's not what they mean, because the Hindus of Kashmir have left the valley. They are in refugee camps, so they have gone abroad. And while they are abroad, are they settler colonialists somewhere? Well, just like Ajanta Subramaniam and this Natarajan, they are also, many of them are living in the United States, not in Kashmir Valley. So this language they use is very offensive, obnoxious, and meaningless. No, cannot hear you. Yeah. No, so I think there's a lot of issues with this report. I'm surprised they have made it public, okay, because they come across as clueless idiots, honestly, for being at Harvard and at these universities. And the conversations they're having about how to get back in the game of defining Hindus and keeping Hindus in their places in the diaspora, and following the money to see how much money goes from the US to India to promote Hindutva. But Hindutva is Hinduism. So that they talk about it when it's convenient. And here they talk about it as in a very negative, derogatory sense. Can you talk now? No, cannot hear you. Yeah, yeah. No, what I'm trying to say is that it's a very offensive thing for them to say, because the Kashmir ethnic cleansing has been extremely horrible. People having lost lives, and the whole scenario of something like that happening would never be tolerated anywhere in the modern world. Of course, we have seen that kind of behavior in the Americas 500 years ago. We have seen that happening in other parts of the world when the colonial Europeans came to destroy and eliminate native tribes. But in modern times, in the early 90s, is when the last exodus of the Hindus happened from Kashmir Valley, and it happened because of the terrorist activities by Islamic Republic of Pakistan, along with brainwashed Indian Muslims in that same area, who drove out the Kashmiri Hindus of the land. So now for Ajanta Subramaniam, Laurie Allen, and Balamurali Natarajan to claim that that somebody is a settler colonialist, I don't know who they're talking about. If they're talking about the Kashmiri Muslims, well, go take it up with the Indian American Muslim Council. But that has nothing to do with Hindu community at all. So I think they better watch their words. And also, in several of the northeast states have become Christian, but no Hindu rose up against it to go slaughter people. They'll just let it happen, whether it's good or bad. It's happened. They live in the country of India, along with a Muslim majority Kashmir and Christian majority states of the Northeast. So I think Ajanta Subramaniam and Balamurali Natarajan have very confused ideas of Hindus and Hindutva, which is equal to Hinduism, because that is what they themselves said, established in 2021, dismantling global Hindutva. So I don't think they have any rights to come back and reclaim a different narrative. Can you speak, Ajay? I can't hear you. Not sure what's happened. Yeah. Anyway, I think we should put out the links of this particular podcast, the interview of Balamurali Nadarajan by Ajanta Subramaniam and Laurie Allen. Ajay, we should put it out so people can listen to it and understand where the anti-Hindu cabal, where they are going with the whole topic of caste and Hindutva. And I think we should all be ready to counter this at every turn, because this is a dangerous agenda in the for the diaspora in North America.